I promised it a couple days ago. I figured it wouldn't be that difficult, so we'll try it out. Obviously, I've put a lot of time into PT. I'm pretty knowledgeable with the character, so why not check out my thoughts on the good matchups, the bad matchups, explain them a bit, say the full name. I don't feel like saying... I can't. So we'll start with Banjo, I guess. I see Banjo. So I'm gonna put this one in normal advantage. Projectiles are really good against PT. PT also can kind of get overwhelmed up close, at least like Ivysaur. Banjo's pretty exploitable once you get your hands on him, so it's not too big of a deal for PT. Bayo, I'll put in strong advantage. I think it's just a big character outclass here. PT has a little bit of everything that can annoy Bayo in terms of like a small character or like big kill power with the other Pokemon. You can actually edge guard Bayo. There's a bit of everything that would annoy Bayo there. It'd be tough to kill PT along with the size of Squirtle, all that stuff. Bowser Jr. I'll just put this in big advantage. The typical Squirtle into Ivysaur edge guard flowchart would work very well here. Ivysaur can really go out there with neutral airs. Like, you don't even have to down air a lot of the time. You can kind of just be very aggressive off stage. Byleth. I don't know if I've ever done this one. I'll put this in advantage. Off stage is really fucking bad. I think just a character outclass here too. I'm sure Squirtle might be pretty annoying for Byleth to deal with in neutral. I think another case of the typical Squirtle combo into Ivysaur edgeguard flowchart might work very well here too. Falcon, I'll put in normal advantage. Squirtle's size is very useful here. Falcon's recovery is really bad. Nairs, Razor Leaf frame traps, down airs, like Falcon just dies most of the time. Cloud, I will say normal advantage. Cloud can definitely wall you out super hard. He does a lot of damage, and it's very tough to get in with any of the Pokemon. If you play disciplined, you can live for a while, edge guard very well. If you take it slow, you usually get your opening and hit a bit harder, as long as you stay disciplined, like I said. Looks like this is even at best. This is our first like tough matchup. Similar to Cloud in terms of you get walled out, except a lot harder because the hitboxes are similar in size, but very rapid too. And the ledge trapping is really bad. Getting off the ledge is very tough for PT in general. They don't have many tricks up their sleeves. A trick you guys are probably thinking of is Ivysaur up-B'ing through the stage. But I kind of see that as delaying the inevitable if it doesn't hit, of course, because then like you're still on the ledge with no invincibility type of thing. If you get jabbed off the ledge, you die, like, so you can't wait. Neutral is really bad. The ledge is really hard. Disadvantage is really hard. Chrom is really fast, and PT isn't, so there's not many places to go against Big Sword and Fast Sword. So it's really tough to get your footing a lot of the time if you lose it. I would even go as far as saying this is disadvantage, because there's so many layers to why it's better for Chrom than PT. I think something as simple as edge guarding isn't enough to make it even, because if Chrom wins neutral, keeps you in disadvantage for so long, and ledge traps you really hard, it feels really bad. Corrin is very slow, so Corrin will keep you out, but the edge guarding is terrible, and neutral is fine because you can keep up. I would even go as far as saying this is big advantage. Ivysaur actually gets to play a game Ivysaur isn't used to playing against top tiers or other decent characters, because you actually get to Razor Leaf and actually control the pace because Corrin's so slow. In a lot of matchups, Razor Leaf is useless in that sense. It's definitely a big plus if Ivysaur gets to control the pacing at all, because Ivysaur is very slow. But if Ivysaur gets to control the pace, you have huge hitboxes and big kill power. Diddy Kong, I will put in disadvantage. Neutral is really tough. You're super slow, so Banana controls everything. You can't overwhelm Diddy Kong. He's always gonna have control of Banana. You don't have any ambiguous approaches because your ground speed is slow and your air speed. So you're gonna feel cornered very often against Diddy Kong. The neutral is just way too rough. The ledge trapping is very rough, just like Chrom. The only strength is that you're gonna be living a long time pretty often, so you have to use that to your advantage. But Diddy, like, just because you're living often doesn't mean it's going to be any less painful, you know what I mean? It's just a slow death. Here's another matchup where, like, what's Razor Leaf to Banana? You're going to be caught shielding a lot because you have no speed to deal with, like, Diddy Kong's huge threat range with the Banana. You're going to be getting grabbed and monkey flipped a lot. You're just going to be getting conditioned and baited over and over because where are you going to go? DK it's really hard for Donkey Kong because he gets hit by the typical flowchart with Squirtle combo into Ivysaur Edgeguard. He doesn't have any mix-ups off stage, and he dies very early if he gets sent downwards at all because his recovery doesn't have much vertical to it. So it's very tough. And even small characters can be kind of annoying for DK. He has some great moves to deal with it, like F tilt, down B. Things like back air in a scramble situation won't work. Squirtle is just gonna maul you. And then the switch into Ivysaur is really free after that because it's not like you have any crazy mix-ups. It's definitely tough. If 2 of the 3 Pokemon are doing really well, and even Charizard obviously doesn't do terrible, then it's not a good look. If there's only one Pokemon that does really good on paper, then you have a much better chance. Because that means they're relying on something specific. But if you can kind of have multiple ways to win, then it's bad. Dr. Mario's slow and stubby. Here's another matchup where Ivysaur can actually play neutral. Ivysaur will keep Dr. Mario in disadvantage above Ivy. So that means she can really abuse Dr. Mario while he's in disadvantage. And obviously off stage is bad too. I can't see this being too great. If PT is able to keep up with the pace you set, then it's very good. Because PT doesn't like being overwhelmed and all that stuff. And there's no way PT is going to be overwhelmed against Dr. Mario. I would put this one in even. The neutral is going to be very rough for PT here, but I think you can kind of take the L and take it very slow, because I think once you get Duck Hunt in disadvantage with Squirtle or Ivy, you can keep it going, thankfully. So you'll hit harder for your neutral wins than Duck Hunt, but neutral itself will be very bad. And then obviously Duck Hunt's recovery isn't too great. They have the can mix up, but I think the way PT edge guards might actually, it'll still be fine most of the time and you'll be able to get those Ivysaur spikes. Yeah, I think Ivysaur would still be okay here as long as Duck Hunt's in disadvantage first. So I think you'll have to stick it out with Squirtle and deal with the rough neutral until you get your opening. But it's definitely frustrating and it would definitely take some time to get used to. But I would have faith in this one specifically. So I'll keep it at even. Bowser. Similar to Donkey Kong here, the neutral with Squirtle is very good here. You can overwhelm Bowser, huge grab combos, get the switch into Ivysaur off stage, dead. So the Bowser matchup is similar to DK here in terms of what you do to get the stocks. Bowser will definitely live long if you don't do that, but it's kind of like delaying the inevitable. Just play your game and it's a very solid matchup. Falco can definitely overwhelm PT close quarters, I would say, but I think he does that to everyone. Falco's slow enough in neutral to where you can play your game. His recovery is very bad, it always has been. So the typical Squirtle into Ivysaur flowchart will work really well here too. So yeah, it's not too terrible for Falco, but I think overall it would be Falco playing keep up a lot of the time because PT just hits so hard. And Falco is kind of relying on the same openings up close. Falco has more to play around than PT has to, I think. Steve. I don't fucking know. This reminds me of Duck Hunt in terms of the neutral. I think the neutral would be really annoying. But it also reminds me of Duck Hunt in the way if you actually get the hit on Steve, I think they could die from it. Because I think it's that brutal. When they recover high with the cart, I think Ivysaur could actually deal with that pretty well. I think Vine Whip would actually slap him right out of the cart. Yeah, I'm gonna go with even because I think a good Steve would ledge trap the fuck out of you and you might just die without many options because PT kind of sucks at getting off ledge, and a lot of the time they don't have a choice but to go to the ledge because they don't have much air mobility to like go straight to the stage. It would just be a really long and grueling matchup. Fox. Okay, chat, I'm gonna ask you a question. Don't think about what I'm thinking. I want to know what you're thinking. You think this matchup is winning for PT, right? I know you do. I know you do. Wow, everyone thinks Fox wins. Okay, I'm not crazy. PT gets destroyed. At least this matchup fucking sucks. Bro, when you get hit as PT What the fuck are you gonna do? What is your option? Someone explain to me how you get out of disadvantage. What happens when you get hit? You just die. You literally just die. What happens when Fox gets hit? He might die, yeah. But getting that hit is important, right? Fox definitely gets that hit for free and PT doesn't. You just down air with Ivy against Fox. That is true. How do you win neutral? How? But it's not big disadvantage because Fox will die to edge guards very consistently, but neutral is terrible. The ledge is terrible. When you get hit, you literally take 100 fucking damage. It's one of those matchups where you would want to say even because your character has such big strengths. But then if you really think about it, is it really even? You're just playing keep up the whole time because he's so fast. What about Squirtle against Fox? It's your best bet. That's your best frame data, but you are super slow and Fox is even faster frame data wise and speed. Oh, I forgot about Ganon. Boop. This matchup is bad for Ganon standards. That's all I'm gonna say. Yeah, Greninja's probably disadvantage. It's probably like Fox, but not as bad. PT stuck on ledge disadvantage. Yeah, another case where you get hit and you can't get away. He's so fast, he's so overwhelming. If Squirtle feels a little overwhelmed, then what is Ivy gonna do? What the hell is Ivy gonna do in neutral? But, Greninja definitely gets edge guarded. It actually sounds just like Fox, just with some of the extremes are minimized a little bit, but pretty rough matchup. Hero, probably slight advantage. It can be pretty weird in neutral because of there's like projectiles. Hero is kind of lacking in frame data and usually you can edge guard quite well, but you do have to take neutral a little slow because they're going to be throwing out a lot of stuff at you. But once Squirtle gets in on Hero, I think it's pretty solid because of Hero's lack of fast normals. And a lot of characters struggle to edge guard Hero if he actually gets the zoom. But I think PT can often hit Hero before he activates it. But then if he isn't using zoom, then he's dead. It's one of those matchups where it's like, okay, I have to deal with projectiles, that's annoying. But nothing else is too difficult. This is normal advantage. Ike outranges PT heavily, so neutral can take a while, but PT gets a solid hit on Ike, and the typical Squirtle combo into Ivy Edgeguard works wonders. But neutral, Ike does pretty well in neutral, but and keeps PT in disadvantage pretty well. I don't think it keeps up enough with PT's flowchart of death, basically. This is why PT will always be a solid character, because there's so many characters that just get fucked up by the flowchart. Ice Climbers. I wish I could get more into specifics, but I think Ice Climbers would do fine in neutrals. They have some disjoints, some projectiles, some stuff to keep them out, but I don't think it's enough. But if you play neutral, not disciplined, I could see it being annoying. Incineroar, big advantage. Incineroar is slow. That is very, very, very good for PT because that means I get to play Squirtle and Ivy in neutral, both of them in neutral. And once he gets hit, where are you going? Another matchup where Ivysaur can keep up with the pace. So I get to use Ivysaur even more than usual. Inkling. This is actually a pretty solid matchup for PT. You would think Inkling would control the neutral very heavily, but you actually can use Ivysaur in neutral pretty well here. And Inkling dies pretty well to the Squirtle into Ivysaur Edgeguard flowchart. So it's a pretty good matchup here. Neutral is slightly in Inkling favor, and you get ledge trapped pretty hard, but your stocks usually last long enough for you to always keep up. And I would overall say this is a good matchup. I'll just put this in normal advantage. Isabelle's super annoying for PT, but there's like a small character outclass here where you can kind of just win by forcing your kill power and stuff on Isabelle, but it is pretty annoying. Oh, also swap is very good against up throw up air. You can always delay it and up air them anyway if you read the swap, but you're adding another variable to their up throw up air by making them wait sometimes. So sometimes you don't have to switch at all. Sometimes you can kind of play reactionary a bit and switch if you think they're committing to it. It's a pretty good matchup. Joker, I'm gonna put this one in normal disadvantage. Squirtle does very well at putting Joker into an offstage situation, and PT can edge guard both forms of Joker, Arsene and without it, which is a very big plus that not a lot of characters have. Advantage state is pretty good most of the time. You have your ways to deal with down guns with Ivysaur because you have huge hitboxes and you hit really hard. So you have ways to kill Joker early, and you have ways to, you know, deplete Arsene, kill him before Arsene is a big threat. So yeah, those are the pluses. They're pretty basic. PT's a very basic character, so usually winning or losing it isn't very complicated because PT has a very strong flowchart and it usually works. But when it doesn't work, there isn't much you can do. So for neutral against Joker, Joker is way faster than you in every way. So it's kind of like Fox and Greninja, like we were talking about. Joker will run circles around you while also throwing out some of the best projectiles in the game. So Joker will chip away at you relentlessly, and there's nothing you can do in that regard. So a lot of damage will rack up very easily because you just can't get in. Joker can just chip away at you with stray kill moves. So it's hard work for Joker, but on paper, there's not much you can do. This is the style of Joker that I see is going to be more of a problem in the future, like a really defensive style, kind of like a last resort, like this matchup is hard, let me camp. And that kind of is Joker's answer to any difficulty. And I think with PT, it's the same thing. It's like, all right, let me avoid getting edge guarded or getting a bunch of damage. Let me just camp this slow character out. And that's why the matchup's pretty rough. And Joker's a great ledge trapper, and PT really struggles with getting off the ledge, so that's tough. So yeah, overall, pretty simple matchup. It just, the deciding factor is the Joker disciplined enough to ignore you, just not fight. And usually people want to win, so they'll do that. This matchup is really bad. Puff is really floaty and slow and is like very airborne, and you get to play Ivysaur a lot more. Yeah, Ivy destroys Puff really bad. It's pretty simple. Usually I just maybe go Squirtle at the start and then just go Ivysaur. Nothing Puff can do a lot of the time. I guess I'll put this in even. So for the good stuff, Ken dies to the Squirtle into Ivysaur flowchart. How many times am I going to say that? But Ken actually keeps up with PT very well. Ivysaur can try to keep Ken out, but it won't last forever. Squirtle can try to frame data and move around, but Ken will get in. There's a lot of stages where you can stick to the platforms with PT, and that's great. But if Ken gets in, which I think is a reasonable possibility because Ken is pretty fast, it's very hard to get away because PT is pretty vulnerable when they're getting overwhelmed. There's not much you can do, and Ken is very good at that. So I think overall, the strengths are pretty even for the both of them. Ken has to try his hardest to get in, and you have to try your hardest to keep them out, while also still threatening your edge guards. So it's definitely a hairy matchup. Dedede, this is a big advantage. Bowser and DK are very similar matchup. Dedede's a little different in terms of the neutral. Obviously, Gordo is different, and his recovery's a lot better. And he's, you know, very heavy as well, but it's a similar thing where you do your typical Squirtle flowchart, except his stocks last a little longer. But what does that really mean? So take your time, you'll get your kills. Might have to rely on Charizard a little bit sometimes, but that's about it. King K Rool, it's actually more comparable to Dedede. So Bowser and DK are very similar, and then Dedede and K Rool are very similar. The projectiles you have to deal with, it's just delaying the inevitable, because once you get your opening, they die. K Rool won't last as long as Dedede because his recovery is a lot worse, but it will generally take longer. Kirby. This is a matchup I would really enjoy because it's another case of you getting to play Ivysaur neutral. So you have a lot of more options. You can always play Squirtle neutral, that's the whole point of Squirtle. But when you have Ivysaur too, that's when it's really great. You can easily keep Kirby out with back airs, which is one of Ivy's best moves, and it leads into a lot of dangerous stuff. Kirby isn't normally that susceptible to dying off stage, but Ivysaur will chase Kirby to the depths of hell, and Kirby will usually die for it. Another classic case of Do I get to play more than one Pokemon? Yes? Okay, I win. Link. This is probably normal advantage. Link is naturally a little clunkier than the other two Links because he's a little slower. His moves have a little more startup, but he does have the projectile still. It's mostly just Boomerang you have to deal with. Arrow isn't too big a deal. Bomb isn't happening as often. So you will get in and you will edge guard them and you will overwhelm Link a lot of the time. Little Mac. Do I really have to say anything? How many matchup charts have I done? When has it been any different? Little Mac's recovery versus edge guarding the character. It's very hard. And another matchup where you can play Ivy in neutral if you want. Okay, so for Lucario, neutral is probably pretty fine. Aura Sphere isn't annoying enough to where you can't play Ivysaur. Squirtle is Squirtle. So Lucario's recovery specifically, I want to talk about that. It's very bursty, right? And it can be very fast. And he will recover a lot of the times in most matchups because most characters have their one move that will edge guard Lucario, and it's kind of like, I hope it hits, I hope I time it right. But with Ivysaur's neutral specifically, you're covering a huge space and the move is very active. So you're either forcing Lucario to go in a position where you can down air, or they're gonna get hit by the Nair. So Lucario will get edge guarded way more than he's used to, specifically because of neutral air. Because if he does an early upbeat to try to get past you before you can do anything, the Nair is just gonna work every time. And then if he has to recover from a downwards angle, like straight up or anything else, the down air is gonna work every time too. Lucas, probably normal advantage because of a character outclass. The neutral would be pretty annoying, right? Because of PK Fire, but the projectiles actually aren't rapid enough to stop you from getting in. I think it's just a small character outclass where it's kind of like, okay, neutral's annoying, but once I get my chance to play, it'll hurt a lot more than Lucas's chance to play. Lucina. I'm actually gonna go with normal advantage here. Let's actually compare Lucina to like the other sword characters. Let's go with Chrom here because it's a big difference in matchup advantage and disadvantage. Even is okay too. After I explain it, I'll give it another thought. So let's explain it. So with Chrom, it's tough because of Chrom outranging you, but it's way faster and Chrom falls a lot faster. So he'll like do some aerials, then he'll down tilt specifically with Chrom versus PT. Down tilt's really tough. With Chrom, down tilt is always a move that is why not against PT. It is never a bad idea. It will always be in your favor to down tilt. Lucina too, but Chrom is going from the air to the ground way faster and throwing out way more rapid hitboxes. And PT's approaches are so obvious that it's just super hard. Lucina's gonna do similar things with down tilt, but when Lucina goes to the air, it's way easier. She's so much more floaty. The hitboxes aren't as rapid, and you will get your chance, even with Ivysaur and neutral. Ivysaur and neutral here works way better than it would versus Chrom. And even the ledge is definitely not as bad because Chrom's jab specifically just destroys PT at the ledge. And versus Lucina, there will be a couple openings where you can get off the ledge. I'll put this in big advantage. So for Luigi, platform sharking is really good with Squirtle and Ivysaur. Here's another matchup where you can play Ivysaur in neutral, and once you get your opening on Luigi, he can't get out of disadvantage. Getting off the ledge is very hard too, this has always been a Luigi thing, and he can't recover ever. So you just have to play against Luigi's strengths or strength. He has one strength, it's just very strong, and the rest of the strengths are in your favor. So you have to be a little disciplined to avoid the grabs, and it's a favorable matchup. Mario, I'm gonna go with, it's at least disadvantage. This matchup is really terrible. So when Mario gets an opening on you, you can't get away. You switch and Mario hits you again, right? It's like, what do? You can't get off the ledge. Neutral is so hard. PT isn't too mobile, so even approaching with Fireball can be annoying. And if that's annoying, then imagine what else is annoying, because that's such a simple Mario strat. It's just a hard matchup, man. You are one of the few characters that can actually kill Mario off stage, so that's good. Marth, I'll put this one in normal advantage. We just talked about Lucina. It's a similar thing. you get kept out very well, but the floatiness you can really use to your advantage. And if Marth is sticking to the ground, that helps a lot with giving you potential approaches. Okay, let's talk about Mega Man. So we've talked about a lot of characters that give PT a hard time in neutral. This character is the fucking shining example of PT having a hard time in neutral. How do you approach with any 3 Pokemon? So that's tough, right? So that means, okay, I gotta stick to Squirtle here to try to abuse size. There's another example where you're limited to 1 Pokemon here. But in terms of the things that work out well, Mega Man has a really bad recovery, and PT is one of the best edge guarders in Ultimate. So it saves you from being a big disadvantage matchup, which is usually why PT has a chance, because PT's so explosive, kills so early off stage. But neutral is really bad. There's a shit ton of hitboxes at all times. You're never getting the right opening that works towards something meaningful. Mega Man also juggles you very well. Mega Man's up air works really perfectly here, and it forces PT to the ledge most of the time because none of the Pokemon have great air mobility, so you're forced to swap a lot of the time, which just delays the inevitable and you get hit again. And then Mega Man ledge traps you really well. Lots of rapid hitboxes. PT doesn't have many great mix-ups of getting off the ledge. So Mega Man's often forcing PT's hand, and PT isn't that ambiguous of a character at all. So the unexpected isn't going to happen a lot of the time. So whatever Mega Man's general game plan is, it's going to work every time, because there isn't going to be some crazy variable that's going to change things. Meta Knight. I'll put this one in normal advantage, mostly due to a character outclass. A Meta Knight's neutral in terms of getting openings is usually pretty simple in terms of meaningful openings. So PT can definitely keep up in neutral. This is a matchup where Ivysaur is probably not a bad idea. So you have Squirtle and Ivysaur. In terms of other specifics, Meta Knight can definitely play the keep away game with his jumps and frame data, but I don't think it's gonna be enough to actually win him the matchup or anything. I feel like it's just him kind of like frantically trying to keep you out, and that's a good sign for PT. So it's not like it's too meaningful. Eventually PT might just hit harder than you and take your stock. Sorry, I'm not too experienced, but I could see this matchup being pretty solid for PT. So other than Shadow Ball and neutral, I think neutral would be very doable against Mewtwo. He's not going to be coming in at any ambiguous angles. Usually the Shadow Ball camping will be either out of a short hop or grounded. The threat of the charge is going to be very tough in neutral because you can't burst at him and overwhelm him for doing so. So you do have to take it very slow, but the openings are going to be so much more meaningful than his. You're going to take stocks out of a string way more often. You're going to take stocks out of an edge guard way more often. It's going to be Mewtwo having a simple neutral attempt to stay ahead of the match. Like, if Mewtwo never loses the lead, it could be pretty nice. It's not in-depth enough to keep PT out forever, I don't think. And he gets punished hard for losing neutral compared to PT. Miis, I think against Brawler, you could actually play both Squirtle and Ivy in neutral. So that's solid. Gunner, I could see this one being pretty annoying too. Gunner could probably be an evenish matchup. Neutral would be really rough. It's not like Joker or Mega Man or Mario where you're also gonna just get overwhelmed to the point where you lose your stock. It's gonna have to happen quite a bit before you die, so that's naturally more opportunities to stay ahead. But overall, Gunner's neutral would probably lead to them winning the match, but there's so many more, you have so many more opportunities than usual to, you'll still be able to get edge guards, you'll still be able to keep them in advantage really well, but Gunner kind of slow though, stuff like that. The neutral is really heavily in Gunner's favor, but there's variables that definitely help you. And then Sword Fighter is probably slight advantage. Sword Fighter's projectile game isn't as ambiguous as Gunner's to be too annoying, and the frame data isn't too fast either. But I would say it's still okay for Sword Fighter, but I would say PT outclasses there. Sword has to be annoying. I think that's just in general though. PT would obviously be annoyed by the projectiles and stuff, but I still think it's very doable. Min has the extreme range, but the amount of ambiguity to it wouldn't be much. It's gonna be a similar thing every time. So there's hope there. But something like Gunner, it's just too much and it's all over the place. Like, what do you do when you're a slow character like PT? But with Min, you're both slow. It's just they have the extreme range. And I do think Min would die in one hit as well, like someone just said. You know, one hit is a very wishful thinking mindset, but it is, there's a lot of truth to it. I would love to play this matchup because I think I would actually need to play it quite a bit to know for sure what it is. I have a general idea, but you definitely can't get off ledge, but she can't recover. Like, there's so much, it really sounds like even because I'm always like this, but this, but this. I think it's even. Post whatever. I mean, I'm not playing PT. I think even makes sense for my thought process right now because I'm always like, well, Min has this, but PT has this. So even sounds good. Game & Watch. This matchup sucks. So neutral is really tough. Well, I don't think it's neutral that's really tough. Neutral is okay. Disadvantage is what's really bad. When Game & Watch gets an opening, you are forced to the ledge. And then when you're on the ledge, you're like, wait, why did I go here? Because you have to, and then you just die. Every time Game & Watch hits PT, it's like another Fox motherfucker. Yes, it's like every time I get hit, I take 100 damage. Chef at ledge, oh my god. Chef at ledge versus PT is disgustingly good. Bro, what is Game & Watch's advantage state in this game? He gets like 80% plus every time he hits you. And it's not even like a true combo, you just... Nair? Yeah, Nair does so good against PT. Neutral's okay. You play Squirtle, and you can kind of keep him out a little bit, because Game & Watch is very slow. You just can't. Chef at the chair is not okay. Yeah, the Chef does like 20 damage, and then he kills you at like 80 with a tilt. I'm just like, whoa, okay. Game & Watch just has so much more going for him, but the neutral is actually pretty good. For some reason, even PT's advantage state against Game & Watch doesn't compare. Why is his advantage state so good? He has huge hitboxes. Up air is really good. Any sort of reversal you try to go for, it gets up beat. It's kind of just like a vicious vortex where you can't get away. Because PT struggles with their airspeed and ground speed and neutral too. Like, it's just, it feels like very overwhelming. You really need to hope they leave a stage open that's in your favor. Ned thinks Game & Watch loses to PT. I think the ledge and disadvantage is way too bad for it to be. I don't think it's big disadvantage because neutral is okay. Game & Watch is light. You can kind of edgeguard Game & Watch, but your ledge trapping is not nearly as good either. Switch is so useless here. Switch is 100% useless. Ness. This one is probably normal advantage. So in terms of the neutral versus Ness, Ivysaur is actually not too bad here. You have to watch out for PK fires. Ness presses a lot of buttons, so you need to be in a position where you can't get overwhelmed. Ivysaur keeps Ness at disadvantage very well compared to most characters. Usually characters with like big range, like sword characters, keep Ness at disadvantage really well. Because Ness has a lot of hitboxes, but Ivysaur has huge range and can kind of force Ness into the ledge. And then the edge guarding is very good, of course. So this matchup is pretty good. Ness dies in the same scenarios very often because Ness's disadvantage stays so linear, especially off stage. Ness is a pretty linear character in general, and so is PT. So the general flowcharts are very viable here because there isn't many unexpected things that are going to happen. So Pacman, this might be our first big disadvantage. It's so funny, it reminds me of Diddy. It's at least disadvantage. So Pacman puts the hydrant down in neutral, right? That's it, you lose. Just like Diddy. Not as extreme, but there's a lot of truth to it. Because PT is super slow on the ground and in the air. So getting rid of hydrant is very linear. Pacman knows what you have to do, and that puts them in a winning scenario because they are forcing you to deal with this roadblock that is on the stage. It's just like, what are you gonna do? Jump over it and then like slowly get anti-aired? And then when you're in, Pacman has equal frame data to Squirtle. It's like, what do? You can never get in properly. You can get straight hits, right? Just Smash Brothers, but are they gonna be meaningful enough to actually keep up with how bad neutral is. No. It's terrible. The Pacman just has to be disciplined enough to never fight. And honestly, I don't see why that isn't reasonable, because Pacman is never fighting anyway. Why not just camp a little extra harder? Which they usually do. So it's a bad matchup. Sounds like big disadvantage. Yeah, I don't see why not. Palutena. This is a very interesting one. A lot of people think PT does well because of Squirtle's size. I think there's a lot more to it, because Palutena heavily outranges, heavily outspeeds, and ledge traps just as hard as PT would edge guard, if not harder. So I think there's a chance Palutena might even win the matchup. When PT gets opened up, there's nowhere for them to go. Palutena's moves are very big, very fast, very active, and then you get forced to the ledge, and then you can't play the game. It's super tough. I think the Palutena has to be a little extra disciplined, and I think that's why some Palutena players would struggle against like Squirtle or something, because it's not as easy. You have to take a little extra steps. But once you take those little extra steps in neutral and you really wait it out and you really abuse your mobility and active in big hitboxes, then you can play normal Palutena, the normal Palutena game. The only thing is, I do think PT lives a little bit longer against Palutena than Palutena would be used to, but I don't think that's enough to justify it being good for PT, just because you're living 20-30% longer than usual. I think Palutena destroys in the neutral, destroys in advantage state, destroys them at the ledge, and PT edgeguard Palu. There's a lot of times where Palu's forced to recover low, and you can edgeguard Palutena really effectively. But there's so many ways to recover as Palu. You can always go on stage, you can always go to the ledge from an upwards diagonal angle to where you can't get 2-frame. So I don't think it's as effective or consistent as Palutena's ledge trapping against PT. Palutena wins, which is probably unexpected, but I would just wish that anyone that disagrees would listen to my reasoning, because PT's strengths are the occasional edge guard and living a little extra longer. If Palutena camps it out a little bit harder than usual in neutral, the projectiles are really great because PT is so slow. PT just can't keep up with her speed. I'll go with even. Here's a matchup where it's great that you can play Squirtle or Ivy. Turnip is very useful because PT can't stop you for pulling a turnip, because PT isn't fast enough to overwhelm Peach for trying to pull a turnip. She can always pull a turnip pretty much whenever she wants, but she's slow enough to where you can play Ivysaur in neutral, and Ivysaur can bully Peach a lot if Ivysaur gets the right opening. And then Squirtle naturally is playing neutral a lot of the time, and Squirtle does alright as well. Peach has a better recovery than most characters, so she isn't going to be outright dying to any flowcharts. PT has to work a lot harder for that. Peach keeps PT in the corner infinitely. PT has top tier corner pressure, everyone knows that, and PT struggles in the corner, so a lot of your stocks will be lost due to simply guessing wrong, or sometimes you had no options in the corner. So that means Peach has more consistent kills than PT in the matchup. PT has to take a lot more risky reads or get a really heavily outplayed edge guard, while Peach can simply corner pressure you to the point where you just lose for it. So the ledge trapping is really bad as well, obviously, if the corner pressure is bad. But overall, the neutral isn't even that bad with Turnip in mind. It's good enough. Ivysaur being able to play a lot more is really useful because Peach is pretty slow, and a lot of her approaches can be a little linear, so you can abuse your big hitboxes to snipe her out of the air. But overall, the strengths are pretty evenly matched. So, but I would go with even. I'm a bit optimistic about it, but I think there's a lot of potential for it to be Peach favored if she plays very consistent. Pichu, haven't thought about this one. It's kind of awkward timing because Pichu became a lot less popular around the time I started playing PT. And I think a lot of people are very pessimistic about Pichu, which is pretty reasonable. The damage Pichu does to himself is very overwhelming. But I do think Pichu has a lot of stuff that would destroy PT. I think PT would be in disadvantage forever. Switching would mean nothing. Pichu would just keep it going. Pichu would lead shot very hard. It would be hard to stay consistent because of how much damage you do to yourself. And Quick Attack not having a hitbox is very important for neutral, because that means you can use more Ivysaur, because you won't have to worry about Quick Attack randomly burst optioning you in neutral or off the ledge. So I would put this in even. Pikachu, this is probably a disadvantage. Neutral is surprisingly not too terrible. Thunder Jolt doesn't like destroy your entire world as much as you'd expect. Pikachu is surprisingly one of the few characters that like PT can actually edgeguard Pikachu. Pikachu usually isn't used to that. It's usually just really well timed down air. It's not super consistent, but it is possible. Pikachu is very light. You can kind of play Ivysaur in neutral. It's just very risky because if Pikachu gets in. But overall, it's pretty bad matchup. Ledge trapping is pretty rough too because PT struggles off the ledge, and Pikachu's pretty solid at ledge trapping. F Smash Lingering destroys PT at ledge. Yes. Such a simple strategy too, but PT doesn't have much of a choice sometimes. Olimar. I think this matchup's pretty bad, very efficiently, because PT can't really do much about it. PT's very slow, has to deal with the Pikmin being thrown at him. PT has to deal with the Pikmin being thrown at them before they can deal with Olimar gaining a stronger lineup. So there's so many layers there that make neutral so hard. You're getting so much damage racked up on you that you can't even deal with the fact that Olimar's lineup is getting stronger by the second. And then he's a even better character than you by the time you actually get your footing. But it's not the worst thing ever. Olimar's disadvantage state, I would say, is very bad. Especially for a solid character, it's very bad. And his weight. If PT gets a solid enough opening, you can kill Olimar for sure. But I think neutral is more important than advantage states overall, because Olimar has a pretty solid advantage state against PT too, just because PT is so slow in the air. Usually people can get away from Olimar because he's not too fast, but PT doesn't have that luxury. Overall, it's a pretty tough matchup. And another case where Olimar's ledge trapping does get to shine a little bit because PT's pretty simple at the ledge. Piranha Plant. I can actually see this being surprisingly annoying for PT, but that's about it. Character outclass here, despite neutral probably being kind of annoying and you have to work pretty hard. But once you get a decent enough opening, Piranha Plant definitely struggles. For what it's worth, it definitely isn't too bad, but it's still not incredible. For Plant standards, maybe it's okay. Not to say Plant is the worst character ever, but he's not amazing. Pit. I'll put a normal advantage. You could actually definitely play Ivysaur in this matchup in neutral. And then I think advantage set against Pit would be very nice. It's kind of like Meta Knight. Pit and Meta Knight both have multiple jumps, but they don't have great aerial mobility. So big hitboxes will kind of negate the fact that they have so many jumps. Ivysaur isn't really going to care too much about the multiple jumps. She's going to get her hits anyway. And Pit will surprisingly get edge guarded pretty hard. There's not crazy mix-ups when Pit's coming from below, other than the fact that he has so many jumps. Squirtle would obviously do fine in neutral. So I think the typical flowchart with Squirtle opening into Ivysaur edge guard attempt would work pretty surprisingly well versus Pit. Alright, Richter. This is probably not too bad for Richter. The neutral is probably heavily Richter favored. All of Richter's tricks would work perfectly on PT regardless of switch. Obviously Richter off stage would die at any percent, so it can't be a huge disadvantage. I agree with even, because PT definitely outclasses Richter, but their specific head-to-head would be very tough. Neutral is such an important thing in Smash, and Richter wins it heavily, but you are just so much more explosive than him. Ridley. Squirtle. Ridley could definitely keep PT out, but it's not consistent enough for PT not to get a reversal in neutral and just kill you for it. The hitboxes are big, but they're not that rapid. And obviously Ridley is huge. And Ridley's recovery specifically won't work versus Ivy. R.O.B. Here's another rare big disadvantage. This was something I had to play quite a lot to view. So let's compare it to Pacman. When he puts Gyro down, R.O.B's goal is to control the match when he puts Gyro down. If it's on the ground, right? That's what he uses it for. He'll eventually pick it up and try to kill you with it and all that stuff. But when he initially puts it on the ground, PT doesn't have many options here because they're so slow in the air and on the ground. So everything they do from this point on is very telegraphed, and R.O.B has every option in the world to deal with it. Another zoner that can scrap, yes. And then he will scrap just as well as Squirtle when you actually get in. So it's just so hard. The neutral is just so rough, and then when you actually get in, you have to work harder in a different way because R.O.B is just so good at scrapping. In terms of edge guarding, you have to hit him a million times to actually edge guard him. So it's like your best strength all of a sudden just feels like a normal strength. Taking stocks is super hard, and then you'll find yourself getting edge guarded just as often, and then if you don't get edge guarded, you're on the ledge, and then you're literally screwed. When you're on the ledge against R.O.B as PT, you're screwed. You just lose. So in every aspect of the game, you're losing. You're losing up close. You're losing neutral. Your edge guards aren't as effective. His edge guards are equally effective, and his ledge trapping is literally death. So like, I can't justify it being anything better than big disadvantage. Robin, this is probably a normal advantage. The projectiles are tough, but Robin's very sluggish, so you will be able to inch forward, and you will be able to edge guard very consistently, and the advantage state will be very consistent against Robin in general. You just have to work a little extra harder in neutral, and it's typical Pokemon trainer stuff from there. Rosa. I think Rosa would do very good in neutral and would actually juggle PT very hard and force him to the ledge and then play very well from there too. But I think they would do very similar things to each other. It's definitely not disadvantage, but I'm trying to decide if it's even. But I would probably go with normal advantage here. Neutral would be a little hard. Edge guarding would be very effective. She would die very early if she tries to force her way back on stage. You would be able to ledge trap her pretty okay. I think Ivysaur would shine pretty well here once she gets a solid hit. But I think Rosa would juggle really hard and win neutral. But I don't know if she would actually take consistent stocks for simple openings. She would still have to work pretty hard. Roy. I don't want to just say it's like Chrom because it isn't. But I'm trying to think about it because like obviously I haven't played PT much and trying to think. So you don't get walled out as hard because of the sour spots. So you can inch forward a little better against Roy. But the overwhelming factor of it when he like corners you or hits you is still there, just like Chrom. The ledge trapping is terrible. The edge guarding is equally good for like PT edge guards Roy very well. But I still think Roy commands neutral, overwhelms PT. I think it's still losing. It's still doable, but I just think Roy is just so overwhelming. Ryu's a lot slower than Ken, while also suffering from the same flaws, so it puts it in advantage for sure. Ivysaur can actually play neutral a little better because Ryu is a lot more reactable because he's not as fast on the ground. Samus, this matchup's probably hard, but not like crazy hard, but it's probably annoying. I think this would be slight advantage. So hear me out. So we talked about, you're not going to expect this comparison, but we talked about Lucina having huge range, but being floaty, and it makes approaching a little easier. With Samus, there's a lot of projectiles, but she's pretty floaty, to where things can be telegraphed a little easier. It's a lot of projectiles, which is really tough in neutral, but you'll be able to inch your way forward because of her floatiness and the fact that it's mostly going to be grounded projectile stuff. So I think it could work. And she will get edge guarded in the right scenarios, and advantage state with Ivysaur would work. Bro, how do you get off the ledge against Samus? You definitely don't. I forgot about the ledge. I'll go with even. Neutral is really bad, the ledge would be bad, but there's definitely hope. Sheik. Okay, this is one of those matchups where this is what people would say. Oh my gosh, you just kill her at 50 because you're Pokemon trainer. And that's it. That's the whole thought process, right? You just kill her at 50, right? That's what you do? Just like with Fox, right? Just edge guard him, bro. Just edge guard. Well, look where fucking Fox is. Let's talk about it before we place it anywhere, because I'm actually not positive. So let's talk about neutral. Terrible for all 3 Pokemon. Literally terrible. Obviously, that's Sheik, right? Not the deciding factor of a matchup, but +1 point for Sheik. Needles are just hell, and they can do it at multiple angles because it's like lagless from the air now. Frame data is way better than yours. You will never get off the ledge, and she combos you to the ledge specifically with every opening. Generally, there isn't much going for PT other than the fact that if they get some sort of strange opening, they kill you early. Sheik's recovery is solid enough to where it's not like PT can keep up because they just kill off every opening, because it's not true. So naturally that kind of puts PT in a disadvantageous state because neutral is so rough, and when they get they get way less openings than Sheik would, but if they do, it's still not enough because you're not just killing her, because her disadvantage state is way better than yours. Bouncing Fish literally just resets because PT's too slow. Sheik is great at getting off the ledge. Sheik has a great recovery. So overall, Sheik has everything going for her here. She just has to quote unquote work a little harder. In some eyes it's working harder, in some eyes it's not. So yeah, this is a losing matchup. Shulk. I don't think Shulk can keep you out forever, but obviously he can minimize the damage with his Monados and stuff a lot of the time. But I think this is actually a pretty even matchup. Shulk beats PT in neutral. Kinda. You can actually kind of play Ivysaur in this because you can keep up with his frame data. I would go with even. Shulk has great ledge trapping, but it's not like if you're on the ledge you guaranteed lose ledge trapping. It's kind of like if he gets it right, you lose, which is like all characters. Squirtle can do fine. Yeah, he has better frame data. Shulk isn't, obviously with speed Monado he's crazy, but his frame data and his speed aren't enough to just infinitely control the game. PT can keep up enough, but Shulk is a great character and so is PT, so they're pretty evenly matched. Snake. Yeah, advantage state is very great with Ivysaur, but sadly neutral is not. So you have to play pretty tactically with when you go to Ivysaur. Snake isn't like air camping you or anything. He's always like pretty stationary on the ground when he's camping you, so you can inch forward. So it's definitely not a bad matchup by any means, but I think Snake has a lot of things going for him. Recovering high can help you. It can make Ivysaur guess a little harder because Ivysaur has to rely on up air kills rather than like just down airing you off stage. But if Snake is in that situation, he's dead. I would go with slight advantage here. I have a lot of faith in this matchup, so I could see it being even. I have a lot of faith in Snake in this matchup, so I could see it being even-ish. Neutral is very hard for PT, but I think it's one of those matchups where you can inch forward and play it smart, and you'll get your opening and hit pretty hard. It's just hard with Squirtle because you are susceptible to trades, so you just have to rely on Ivy pretty heavily here. It just sucks because Ivysaur's neutral is pretty trash. Razor Leaf isn't terrible though to disrupt the grenades, so playing a bit of Ivysaur is a good idea here. I think even makes a lot of sense. It's tough, man. It's close. Yeah, I'll go with even. I agree. It's so close. And I always forget about ledge trapping. Ledge trapping really sealed it here. Snake's ledge trapping is quite good here. Sometimes it takes a while for him to get a kill off it, but it's really consistent. And PT doesn't have the luxury of just like not going to ledge like a character like Wario or something. Sonic. I think this one is terrible. PT is a slow character with basically no projectile. Against Sonic, Razor Leaf doesn't exist. Technically, Sonic can just time you out and you have no option but to lose. It's not like Diddy Kong where the start of the match is really important and Monkey Flip and Banana is really good in your burst options. You don't have that. PT's openings have to come from Sonic approaching them and doing something unsafe to them, not from PT approaching them. Because if PT's approaching Sonic, Sonic just resets because they're too slow to do that. If there was a way for PT to get hits, then edge guarding would be great, advantage state would be okay, and you would get your consistent kills. but it should not happen. Sonic would easily get openings on because PT is so linear and slow and just time you out on every single stage. It's just not good. Terry, I think Terry is slight advantage. Terry gets edge guarded consistently even if he recovers high because Vine Whip is so good. Ivysaur has great range. If he goes low, he's guaranteed dead. Neutral is actually pretty solid for Squirtle and Ivysaur. Obviously, there's the threat of Terry getting in, but overall, it's a pretty solid keep away game into Touch of Death. You just have to hope it works out that way. Toon Link is weird because Toon Link has a lot of projectiles, but I do think you could inch forward versus him as Squirtle and get your openings. And Toon Link's recovery is really rough, so I think this one is slight advantage. You just have to work a little hard in neutral. Villager, I think there's a character outclass here, but the projectiles are rough in neutral. Wario, I think, is a disadvantageous matchup. It's really hard to stop Wario from getting in, and he's very overwhelming when he gets up close. Things like Switch always delay the inevitable and might help him get a waft on you. Getting off the ledge is hard. Wario keeps you in disadvantage for a really long time. I think PT wins this matchup. So all of that is true about Wario's strengths. I actually think Wario is really good at recovering high, and a lot of characters can't deal with it. PT actually can, and obviously if he goes low, he gets edge guarded super hard. Squirtle has really good frame data at fighting with Wario. Ivysaur actually has a lot of range to keep Wario out. Wario has a very slow ground game, and I think Ivysaur is able to control the pace if Ivysaur doesn't have to expect Wario approaching from the ground. So I think it's pretty easy to keep him out with Ivysaur and Squirtle, but for different reasons. Wii Fit. I think this is another case where you can inch forward. You just have to really worry about deep breathing. You have to try to ignore Wii Fit with deep breathing, but they are going to get some free approaches. But if you put Wii Fit in disadvantage while she has deep breathing, your advantage state usually lasts long enough to get rid of it. Yeah, but I do think sometimes Wii Fit can keep up. Wolf, I think, is pretty bad. Laser literally destroys PT. They can't approach at all. Snake has much better mobility in the air, way bigger hitboxes, can't get off the ledge. Wolf's recovery is actually pretty bursty, so a lot of the situations where, let's say Squirtle gets a string on Wolf and then goes to switch to Ivysaur, Wolf's recovery is actually really bursty to where you can recover before Ivysaur has enough time to actually edge guard. So Wolf's recovery is actually pretty useful in this matchup, but there are scenarios where you will die. But sometimes it's a lot better to try to ledge trap with Charizard because Wolf's recovery is so bursty. Cross up dash attack is just unpunishable because you're so slow. Laser is just broken. The ledge is broken. Your hitboxes, Wolf's hitboxes are way too big. It's so bad. Why is Laser so broken though? It's extremely active and extremely big, does a lot of damage. It's really safe with the gun hitbox, and PT can't just jump in on it because they're so slow in the air. Yoshi. I think Yoshi's advantage. I think Ivysaur is actually quite good in neutral here, and Ivysaur destroys Yoshi. I have played against Yoshi with 90% Ivysaur, and it's super good. Yoshi really slows down the game, but that's just Yoshi. But overall, Ivysaur does really great here. If Ivysaur is the best pick, there's a lot of faith in the matchup because Ivysaur's strengths are really great if she can get away with using them, which is very rare. It's very rare that Ivysaur is like the go-to, but when she is, it's amazing. Young Link. This matchup is really bad. Another case of extreme rapid projectiles that also lead into combos, and PT will try to switch to avoid them and just get frame dated. Ledge trapping is super rough. Young Link has Squirtle frame data. It's so bad. It's so bad. Young Link starts pressing projectiles and PT loses. It's really tough. The only hope you have is your great edge guarding. You don't win any other aspect. Zelda. So here's Zelda's strengths in this matchup. The ledge. When Zelda has PT on the ledge, it's free damage / kills. Other than that, it's quite a good matchup. You can inch forward versus the down B and neutral, but at the ledge you're kind of screwed. So overall it's advantage, but it will be hard to make a comeback if you've been getting ledge trapped and stuff. but you're basically still winning just because of a character outclass. But Zelda does have some great strengths in this matchup. Zero Suit. Here's the thing about Zero Suit. Squirtle does great against Zero Suit here, and Ivysaur has some great hitboxes against Zero Suit when she's in disadvantage as well. But Zero Suit can still run circles on PT. So it's a strange matchup. If the Zero Suit player is like approaching and stuff, it's probably pretty rough. But if they get a solid lead, they can definitely camp. It's just hard to tack on damage against PT with Zero Suit as you're camping, if that makes sense. It's kind of even slash PT favored. Even though she'll be running circles around you, she isn't chipping away at you that much because it's really hard to hit Squirtle. It's just the thought of her getting a big enough lead to camp is very scary. But that's if with a huge lead. So I'm going to put this in like slight advantage. As for Sephiroth, I'll talk about it and not rate it. How about that? Like my ideas. I think Sephiroth's side B would be very good here because PT can't just rush on Sephiroth for doing it. And if he gets it, it's going to be really hard for Squirtle or for PT to deal with having the orbs on them. Because let's say you go to the ledge or something, PT on the ledge, and then Sephiroth has good ledge trapping. PT's disadvantage state would be terrible versus Sephiroth. Switch would literally be useless. Sometimes even worse than doing nothing. I don't know. I think Sephiroth probably could win this matchup, but the edge guarding would obviously be great. Sephiroth's recovery wouldn't work too often against Ivy. There's the matchup chart. Not too many losing matchups, and not a lot of even matchups either. PT is very simple. The general style either works or it doesn't. That's the main thing I want to get across. I've talked about that a lot. PT has a few flowcharts that are very successful versus a lot of the cast, but sometimes there's not much you can do.